Welcome back, everybody. In today's video, we're going to be delving through our top 10 sleepers for 2025. And so it's going to be position independent, meaning all positions are going to be included, whether it be quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end. And so it's going to be listed not only in terms of the players in which we feel more confident are going to be towards position number one, also the impact that we think they could potentially provide for us as well. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, these are mainly going to be your later round rookies, so your like fifth round picks and onward. We do have a couple guys that are going earlier than that we just think are going to be going way higher as far as their value after the regular season starts. So these guys are normally going to be in your third round range for your rookie drafts. So who do we have at number 10 here?
So at number 10, we have a running back out of Rutgers, Kyle Monangai. And so he's a very physical back. He loves contact. He has relatively good contact balance. He's generally going to be able to truck through somebody. He will punish defenders at the NFL level. And I do think that he could be a decent volume back, kind of like, what Dave Montgomery does for Jameer Gibbs. I think he could be a similar type of impact potentially. He's also probably, in my opinion at least, and I think you share the same opinion, the best pass protector in this draft class. He has a wonderful frame to neutralize pass rushers. He squares up. He has good hand placement. Really, it's at the very worst top three in this class, but I think it's the best. And then as far as his ball security, check out this stat. On 670 career rush attempts, he has never fumbled one time. That is ludicrous. That is the best in the class. And if there's one thing, with later round players that will get you benched, specifically running backs, it's fumbling. So you definitely don't have to worry about that with him. Now, as far as negatives, he really just doesn't have great long speed. He is not going to be housing much of anything. If I had to guess his longest career rush in the NFL, it's probably going to be in the 30-yard range, give or take. Another thing is he's not the best pass catcher. On 51 career targets, he has 3 drops. He doesn't per se have stone hands, but he's definitely not going to be the best pass catching running back out of this class by any stretch of the imagination. And then finally, the draft capital is going to be an impediment for him. He's projected right now to be a fifth round pick. I don't think he's going to be a combine warrior in terms of 40-yard dash time, really. And so I do think that he's going to have an uphill battle for him. But the things in which you need, as such as pass protection ability and ball security, he definitely has in his favor. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of these guys that are going in that fifth or later round, so these sleepers don't really have a lot of negative downsides for us, but draft capital is obviously going to be a big one. We know that these later round rookies, they're not going to have much team commitment, so that's the thing. But one thing about Kyle Monangai is we were getting really excited about his pass protection on film. Like, yeah, he's got some good rushing stats, but man, he's so physical in the run game as far as, pass protection, right? Like, he's physical in the run game and in pass protection. So that's just something that we really enjoyed about him. So moving forward to our number 9 spot, we have Bashal Tutin. So a lot of guys aren't really talking about this guy like at all. We saw on film ridiculous speed. I mean, the ability to take it to the house pretty much anywhere on the field, right? We saw a lot of really long touchdown runs. And that, with his long speed, comes really, really good burst. Might be top 3 in the class for me. Um, so with the big burst and big time speed, he's got really good run after catch ability as well. So once he gets the ball in his hands, if he gets an open field, man, he's gonna get a lot of yak, right? So big downside with him that's really gonna need to be cleaned up at the next level is his fumbles. He had, I think, 9 fumbles in 2 seasons with relatively limited usage. So that's kind of a big concern. And like you said earlier with Kyle Monangai, the quickest way to get you benched in the NFL is fumbles. So another thing we saw was his vision. So we saw consistently when the holes weren't necessarily really wide open, he kind of had a lapse in judgment sometimes where he wasn't able to find these smaller holes and get skinny. But if he gets on a team with good run blocking, he can take some really, really big time plays and turn them into touchdowns. So, And then another thing, like we said earlier, draft capital for a lot of these guys just isn't going to be there. So I think he may have some of the most upside for any running back in the class if he can clean up his stuff.
Yeah, and to add to that, his contact balance, he's generally going to break the first tackle, but we didn't really see multiple tackles broken in on any individual play. And so, he's not the biggest guy in terms of his frame, particularly. So I don't really think he's going to be per se breaking tackles that often. But like you said, he has incredible long speed and burst. So once again, if things are made for him in the run game, he is going to be able to exploit them. And as long as he gets those fumbles under control, and if he can get a little bit more consistent with his vision, especially his ability to get skinny, like you said, there is a ton of upside with this guy.
Absolutely. And at the number 8 spot,
And so at 8, we have Kyle Williams. And so with him, Yak or Rackability is the name of his game. This guy on hitches has incredible snap down. It really reminds me of Garrett Wilson. And afterwards, he will suddenly shift left or right, turn directly upfield, maximize yardage. He has a great feel for, he has great spatial awareness. He makes good use of his blockers. And he's just so elusive in the open field. In terms of his releases, they are very, very good. There was this one rep on the goal line where he was running a slant route and he hit a diamond release that created instant separation. We're talking maybe 3 yards, turned the defender completely around. And then we also saw speed releases to the outside, especially where even in the run game, right? Cornerbacks were so terrified of getting beat deep that on run plays, 4 seconds into the play, the cornerback had no idea that it was a run. And we saw him toast people downfield, and that goes into his speed and burst. He's a little bit more, he has better speed in terms of his long speed per se than his burst, but his burst is still very good. While it's been projected that he's going to be a mid 4.4s guy, I think we both see 4.3 speed on film for sure. Maybe mid 4.3s to later 4.3s. We'll see about that though during the combine. Now, as far as the catch point, he has 21 drops in 5 seasons, and so that is an issue. But it's interesting. He has a career 50.8 contested catch rate on 61 career contested targets. And so it really is just concentration drops. It's not that he's pitiful the catch point exactly. Now his draft catch capital rather, he is projected to be a 5th round pick. So just like with a lot of these guys, like you mentioned, it's an uphill battle for him, but for a receiver, it's a lot easier when you're a 5th round pick to potentially see some playing time because there's a lot of times 11 personnel being run. So it's not quite as hard as it is for running backs, but that is going to be working against him for sure. And he's also a 5th year senior, and he hadn't had a 1,000 yard season until his 5th year in college. And so that is something that is a giant red flag. But the thing is, like with basically all these guys, you can get him in the 3rd round or later, probably, especially now. This guy is completely unknown. If Bobby hadn't shown him to me, I probably wouldn't have heard of him until potentially the combine, even. And, then I wouldn't have any idea besides just how he performed there. And so, while once again, there are some negatives to his game, you're going to be able to get this guy probably for really, really cheap. And he has a ton of upside and has that general Garrett Wilson y type of profile, but albeit with a little bit less production. Is there anything else you want to add?
yeah, you see a lot of Garrett Wilson. I see a lot of DJ Moore as well. Slightly bigger DJ Moore. Uh, yeah, he's a guy that you can probably get in the 3rd round of your rookie drafts. I mean, he is somebody that nobody is talking about at all. So, he's a UNLV transfer and he went to Washington State. So he hasn't had many high profile games, right? Because he's been at some of these smaller schools. So, yeah, I mean, he's got some high upside. If he can get on the field and showcase some of those skills and get those concentration drops under control, I mean, he can definitely have some pretty solid wide receiver 2 upside in my opinion. So, moving on, we have Will Howard at the number 7 spot. So, this guy, a lot of people were kind of in and out on him over the course of the season. You know, I didn't really have one opinion one way or the other with him until I started watching some of his film with you, man. He's got probably the best footwork in the class, in my opinion. I mean, it's pretty good. Like most pro ready footwork for sure. I mean, we see him resetting after every read. So when he does that, I mean, his short and medium accuracy, We might think Shador Sanders' accuracy in the intermediate areas of the field is just a little bit better, but his short accuracy is incredible. Just consistently processing really fast, getting to his first, second, third read consistently with no issue, and then throwing it to the check down if he needs to, throwing it to his third read. Just really, really good processor, really smart thrower of the football as well. He didn't throw many turnovers this year either. Pocket presence. You really want to see if you're a pure pocket passer, kind of like how he is. You want to see those small, kind of violent movements in the pocket to kind of go maneuver around in the pocket, up, sideways, back, whatever. Kind of like how you saw Tom Brady do the majority of his career. He has that sort of movement. Obviously, not to Tom Brady's level, but he does have that kind of similarity there, right? Now, as far as his deep accuracy is concerned, we kind of saw some inconsistencies. He hit some, he overthrew some, he underthrew some, and it was a pretty good sample size of what we saw on film, right? So it's kind of wishy washy, but in the NFL, people aren't asking you to throw bombs all the time, right? You're more so tasked to do these short, medium routes at the NFL level, and I think he can do that very easily. Now, his rushing upside, obviously, he's not going to be a Lamar Jackson or a Jaden Daniels per se, but he definitely has a little bit of run to him. I know they've ran him on a lot of QB powers, QB blasts, stuff like that at Ohio State. I don't think that's going to translate so much at the next level, but you know how they run Josh Allen in the QB power situations on short yardage situations. They could probably do Will Howard that way. He's not as big as Josh Allen, but you could see that, but that's about it for as far as his rushing upside goes. Then again, I think he's going to be somewhere in that fourth round to fifth round range. I've heard some rumors that he'll go even higher than that, like day two, second, third round. But I think he's probably going to fall in that fourth round range. And if that's the case, the hit rate on fourth round quarterbacks isn't that great.
For sure. And one other thing to mention is, like you said, he has very good footwork. He resets for every read. He also generally has a good base when he throws. One thing I will mention though is he once he gets going in a straight line, he is able to get some good build up speed, but his initial burst isn't really very good. And one way that is going to hurt him potentially is his ability to extend plays outside of the pocket. He really doesn't have the initial speed to be able to separate from edge rushers, even at the collegiate level. And as you well know, they only get faster at the NFL level. But like you said, he does have the power ability on QB runs. And so he's, I'm not saying that he's worthless in the run game, even necessarily either. But one thing that I think is going to work to his advantage is that he is a quick processor and he has good footwork. So while he's not, necessarily going to be Caleb Williams or Mahomes out there extending the play, he is able to get the ball out. So it's not as if he's a lame duck there either.
Yeah, seeing a lot of Alex Smith type of throws for sure. And Alex Smith was a high quality QB2 for us for a while in fantasy. So moving on to number 6.
So at number 6, I have RJ Harvey, the running back out of UCF. And so one of his biggest strengths is his vision. He has very good cutback lane ability. He finds them generally accurately. He also is going to get what's blocked for him almost every single time. And one thing to mention is specifically the interior of his offensive line was trash. So what one thing he did is he manipulates linebackers to the inside so that he can in the A and B gap so that he can bounce it outside for long gains. As far as his agility, it's basically impossible to tackle him in a one-on-one situation. He's incredibly elusive. He has quick, twitchy movements, and he has a nasty jump cut as well. It really is reminiscent of LaShawn McCoy, and that's actually the play style comp we had for him. As far as his rushing creativity, both behind line of scrimmage and at the second level, he is incredibly creative, elusive, make you miss in a phone booth ability, and constantly maximizing yardage. One thing that's not working to his advantage is his size. He's a little bit south of 5'8", 207 pounds. Now, while that is a 31.5 BMI, which sounds good, and that is good, we typically want 30.0 or higher, right? He is really short. And so one way that impacts him is in pass protection. And so he isn't really built to neutralize pass rushers being really, really short, for instance. Um, and I really don't think at the NFL level he's going to be asked to pass protect for his quarterback because I'd find it pretty hard to imagine that a team wouldn't have somebody better suited for that. but he does have the lateral agility to theoretically be a very good route runner. So his receiving ability in and of itself isn't going to be an issue. It's more so just I would not want him protecting my quarterback, to be honest with you. And then just like with all these other guys, draft capital, draft capital, draft capital, he's projected to be a fifth round pick. Now, I do think that he is a likely candidate to rise because I think he's going to test out relatively well at the combine, especially if he does the agility drills. You have anything to add?
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a combine warrior for sure, just based on the agility drills. We think he's got some of the best agility in the class. I mean, it just jumps off on film. If you look, I mean, he's making guys miss in a phone booth over and over and over. I mean, really good. I know one thing that we were kind of worried about is that he likes to jump outside a little bit more than we like, just because he has the ability to do it at the collegiate level. So why not? I do think he's got three down back potential for sure at the next level. He just has to have that opportunity, right? And these late round rookies, sometimes they just get lost in the mix, right? So he's really going to have to step up. Whatever team he lands on, he's going to have to step up in training camp and really showcase his skills. And if he does that and wins over the coaches and gets that RB1, RB2 spot on whatever team he's in, he's going to be electric, man. He's really going to be electric. So moving on to the number 5 guy, Tez Johnson. I just got done recording a video for him. I really, really like him, man. Some of the best yak ability in the class for me. He's so elusive. He's not super physical by any means because he's 5'8", 156 pounds, which is, if he is good at the next level, he's going to be the smallest wide receiver on the field at all times in any game. So he's really, really small. That's going to work against him. But we've seen at the next level these guys like Xavier Worthy, Tank Dell, guys like that are getting put in motion and making their way onto NFL rosters that way and becoming impactful that way. But he's going to have to end up on a creative offense to use him that way. So he's super twitchy. His releases, probably some of the most deep bagged releases of anybody in this class. I mean, he was making people look absolutely stupid on film. We think he's going to run in the low 4.3s, so his speed's not an issue. He's not like Tank Dell, where he kind of ran an underwhelming 40 at the size. He's small, and he's very, very fast. So that means, he's not going to be very aggressive at the catch point. He tries. We gave him a 5 out of 5 dog factor for a reason. He is not afraid of contact. This is a little bulldog of a man. And, he doesn't have a great contested catch rate. I think it's 33.3% on, I think, 21 attempts as well. So it's not very great by any means. So we don't want him to do that at the next level. And then he's probably going to be slot specific at the next level as well. So that's not great. That might limit his usage, might limit his ability of being a wide receiver 1. There's not too many Lad McConkeys out there, and Cooper Kupps, right? And then again, he's a 3rd round pick, but this is like the only other knock I can possibly have on him. I mean, I would feel a little bit better if he was a 1st or a 2nd round pick, but his size is the only other thing that I can really say is hurting him. Because everything else, if he was 5'11", 180 pounds, he'd be probably a top 20 pick in my opinion, because that's how good this kid is.
Yeah, and one other thing to mention is his separation ability is special. Yeah, you would be hard pressed for the most part to find too many contested catches. Obviously, you're going to have plenty when you play a couple of years in collegiate football, right? But this guy specializes in separation. Like you mentioned, his release package, his bag is incredibly deep. But then after the catch, his lateral agility, his stop start ability, it's incredible. This guy is constantly maximizing yardage. And another thing he did while at Oregon was return punts. And he is dangerous in the return
Yes,
game.
he is.
And that could be a way to get on the field too.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to our number 4 spot.
And so here we have Devin Neal. So one big attribute that he has in his favor is his vision. He combines that with patience to be incredibly dangerous. Um, it really reminds me of Le'Veon Bell. If you turn Le'Veon Bell and Devin Neal on at the same time and watch them run, it is incredibly similar. His burst is also very good. I wouldn't say it's the best in the class, but it's definitely top 5 in my opinion, which is way more impressive when you consider that he's a little bit under 5'11". He is 5'10", 220 pounds, officially weighing in at the Senior Bowl. And so he's not this tiny guy with this burst. He is a bigger framed back. Also, his creativity. He makes the most out of essentially every single run. He excels in open space. He maximizes yardage through his blockers, leverage, everything. He has great spatial awareness. He is one of the more, he's potentially RJ Harvey or Travion Henderson, but he's one of the most creative rushers of the football in this class for sure. One thing is his contact balance. For whatever reason, despite being 5'10", 220 pounds, really doesn't break that many tackles. And in pass protection, he doesn't really have the play strength to really neutralize pass rushers. That is something that I'd hope he works on and is better at, but probably not going to be his biggest strength for sure. And then his long speed, he's not going to be housing any long runs. Let's be honest here. He is going to maximize yardage as best he can, so you're going to see chunk gains over and over and over again if he's able to get onto the field. It's just he's definitely not going to be housing anything 50 plus yards. You have anything else to add?
Yeah, so I know you said you saw a lot of Le'Veon Bell. I see a lot of Le'Veon Bell as well. But as far as like the burst, when he gets tackled, if he's not squared up tackled and he's able to get like leg tackled or something like that, he has that James Cook ability where he kind of like Inspector Gadget extends himself to get like 3 or 4 extra yards. He does that all the time. So if he can do that ability at the NFL, coaches are going to love him with how efficient he is as a runner. I mean, if you look at his statistics at Kansas, he's got some really, really good rushing statistics, and that's one of the reasons why, right? The elite burst, the great vision. I mean, he's one of the smartest runners in this class, I think. So, yeah, I mean, I think if he can end up on a good team that has some solid run concepts, he'll definitely do a really good job, and I find him being in a committee at the very worst. I don't think this guy gets lost in the mix for sure. Now, coming in at the number 3 spot, Kyle McCord. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, who in the world is Kyle McCord? If you don't watch college football consistently, I wouldn't blame you for not knowing who Kyle McCord is. This guy, he led college football in passing yards this year, and there's a reason for this. Now, in my opinion, not to flame Syracuse or anything, but I don't think they had any big-time pass catchers, in my opinion. I know they have a tight end that's going to get drafted, and then they have LaQuint Allen, who was kind of like a power back as well. But outside of that, they really didn't have much talent at the receiver position, and this guy made the most out of that. I think he had 38 touchdowns, 12 picks this year. Half of those picks came in one game against Pitt. So if you take that game out of the mix, he's got some elite Heisman level numbers. So things I like about Kyle McCord, his arm talent, I think we both agree best in the class, bar none. I don't think anybody's particularly close. We think he's on that pace of like Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold. I know, say what you want about Sam Darnold. Coming out of USC, Sam Darnold had a fantastic arm. So we have him on that sort of scale as far as arm talent goes. You'll see him make some of the tightest windows throws all over and over and over. I know when we were watching film on LaQuint Allen about a week ago, we were just wowed again by how many of these insane throws Kyle McCord was pulling off. And that moves on to my pocket accuracy for him. I mean, he's one of the better pocket passers in this class for sure. He's overwhelmingly accurate for the most part. The only times that he gets in trouble is on these anticipatory throws where he thinks he sees one thing, but the defender comes in and jumps the route. We see that. That's where most of his picks came from, not because he was inaccurate, just because the route got jumped. So, keep that in mind as well with the turnovers, because I think a lot of people are going to see those turnovers and be off on him because they're like, oh, well, he's the next Nathan Peterman, right? I don't think that's the case at all. So, and then his pre-snap ability. I mean, he is a pretty quick processor. I don't think as quick processing as Will Howard is, but it's really good. You can see him go through his reads pretty quickly, and he knows where to go relatively quickly based on how the defenses ran. So we thought that was good. And then you see the Darnold stuff. Let me define that for you guys. So Sam Darnold, we saw it in the playoffs this year. If a team gets some sort of exotic pressure on Sam Darnold and he doesn't see it coming, he can make some of the worst plays imaginable, worst turnover worthy plays imaginable. We did see that from time to time with Kyle McCord. Only when he did not expect the pressure to come, or his O line let a free blitzer in that kind of freaked him out. He'll get scared from time to time and just try to chuck it, and leads to disastrous plays from time to time. Now, I will add, if he knows where the pressure's coming from or sees the rusher, he is great at extending the play, kind of drifting back in the pocket a little bit and just firing a laser to either his hot route or something over the middle of the field. So that's good. Now, his rushing upside, he's about on pace with Shadur Sanders for me as far as rushing upside. He's not particularly fast. He doesn't accelerate particularly fast for me either. He's kind of like got that Eli Manning type of run speed for me where he's not going to be running outside of the pocket very often. And that leads me to the throw on the run ability. If you can keep this guy in the pocket and let him throw 30, 35 times a game and not let him have to get outside the pocket very much, he's going to be a super efficient passer and he's going to make some cocky throws over defenses. You get him outside the pocket running for his life a lot, he's just generally not as accurate. He's still somewhat accurate, but not nearly as much.
Yeah, I think landing spot, obviously, in terms of being able to play, is going to matter, right? But offensive line play, especially tackle play, I think is going to be huge for him. I will say, bes- arguably, Cam Ward is the only other quarterback with more confidence in himself than Kyle McCord, right? But there is nothing he thinks he can't do, which typically with quarterbacks, you want your guy to have a lot of confidence. It's easy to get broken when things go down for you. And so I don't think confidence is going to be any issue for him. He has the ability to throw with zip basically anywhere on the field. It is ridiculous. And like you mentioned earlier, his receivers were doing him no favors. How many deep balls did we see with perfect accuracy? There was just no separation. And where did you want him to go with the ball, man? Oh, goodness. So
Yeah.
tons of arm talent.
Tons of arm talent. I think he's probably going to be in that fourth to fifth round range. So getting him on the field, if he can get on a team where the quarterback position's not really solidified, and he can get on the field and throw some lasers around, man, he could be your next Dak Prescott, I think. So moving on to number 2.
And so here we have one of my favorite players in this class, actually, Jalen Royals out of Utah State. So one thing you're going to see here is speed and burst. While some people have given him a B minus grade and project him to be in the 4.4s with his speed, I think that he is a high 4.3s level wide receiver in terms of his projected 40 time. He's incredibly bursty. He gets up to his top speed very, very quickly. His rack or yak ability is very, very good. In terms of on tunnel screens, bubble screens, he is very good at using his blockers to his advantage, maximizing yardage consistently. He breaks tackles very well and has incredible short area agility to make people miss. There was this pass over the middle of the field on a slant where he juked the crap out of a Boise State defender for a long touchdown over the middle of the field. He is special in open space and also positional versatility. It is fantastic. He is going to be able to defeat press coverage. We didn't really see that in college, but during the Senior Bowl in one of those one-on-ones, he was facing off against a relatively decent cornerback, and he threw the guy to the ground. And the guy had a lot of size on him, and then his bag against off coverage is very good too. He has relatively good foot speed as well off the line of scrimmage, and once again, he breaks tackles very well on his hitches. When he turns upfield, he does remind me a lot of Malik Neighbors. Maybe not quite as bursty, but still very bursty. And then he kind of reminds me of Jamar Chase on some of those screens where he uses his blockers quite well and has the burst up the field along with the vision and tackle breaking ability. But why isn't he Malik Neighbors or Jamar Chase? Besides, level of competition for sure. Mostly, I think it's the catch point for him. So he's just not the best at the catch point. He does have concentration drops. For instance, he has 8 drops in the past 2 seasons. And on film, he does get moved off of his spot in contested situations. Um, he is going to need to be in open space, but luckily for him, he's very good in the screen game and he's a decent separator and very good at finding the soft spots in zone coverage. So I don't think that's going to be a huge issue for him. His level of competition. So he only played 4 ranked teams during his entire collegiate career, and he had less than 50 yards in 3 of 4. So that is definitely a concern. However, against Boise State, the 4th ranked team in which he played, and the last ranked team, he had over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns against them, multiple long touchdowns. So a little bit iffy there. So something to think about, and probably a reason why you're going to be able to get him a little bit lower. And he also suffered a season-ending foot injury during the 2024 season, but he is projected to be able to participate in the combine. So we'll have to see if he looks like the same player. I think during some of the Senior Bowl, the practices, he looked very good and relatively fast. So I think he's going to be fine. You got anything else to add?
I mean, we could sit here and talk about Jalen Royals for a long time. I'll be honest with you. With his level of competition, of him being at a small school, you got to question the quarterback play at Utah State as well. I mean, we saw on film, we were watching some additional film just because we like this guy so much. Quarterback play was not very good at Utah State. If you're a Utah State fan, you'll probably agree with me there. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that foot injury also, I mean, he had played so amazing thus far this past year that I don't think he wanted to risk re-aggravating anything. Just wanted to kind of sit out, and he's already going to be a second round pick, right? He's actually the highest projected draft player on this list, but we don't really see a lot of people talking about him. Like, this guy could have high end wide receiver one upside. I mean, you're saying guys like Neighbors, Jamar Chase. He has that upside. If you just look at the film, he's definitely got that upside for sure. But he just has a few question marks, right? He needs the hands to get a little bit more sure. And he's got to prove everybody wrong about, hey, look, who cares if I played at Utah State? I'm going to show you guys that I'm elite anyways. And that's what I hope for from him. I know you drafted him pretty high on our startup. I think it was the 10th round. So, like, that's definitely high praise, right? I agree with you, right? You took him right in front of me. So, yeah, for sure.
One thing about us is we are not afraid to put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah, that leads me to the last guy on this list who we think is the number one sleeper in the entire class. This guy's a 4th-round pick, and he's our RB3 in the class, right behind Genty and Henderson. Henderson I love dearly. Genty, obviously, one of these really, really high-end elite prospects, right? So with Jordan James, now his physicality, not initially right off the line, is he super physical, but once he gets going, which don't worry, I'll get to that part in a minute. Once he gets going and goes downhill, I mean, he's bulldozing over guys. He's super hard to tackle. Considering I know he's 5'11", around 205 pounds, I think is the right measurements for him. So his BMI's, slightly under 30, but I mean, he's very physical, does not shy away from contact. He's never fumbled in his entire collegiate career with a lot of carries. We haven't seen that at all, and we've graded probably over 100 prospects in this draft thus far.
Manungai is the only other one.
Manungai's the only other one, right? And Manungai's also got some good carries as well, so that's definitely impressive. You don't see that very often. It's a very rare trait to have. And then as far as his acceleration, we think it's top 3 in the class. One thing about him, he accelerates so quickly when he gets off the line. We didn't see him get tackled for loss in like 12 games of all 22 film. I mean, we watched multiple games of him just because we were grading all of these other Oregon players as well. We didn't see him get tackled for loss one time. That's insane. So, he's just good at everything, in my opinion. Where he has any I don't see where he has any flaws. I mean, I really don't. Um, Most of the things that I'm talking about here, his draft capital, his route running and open, his receiving route running is like, kind of limited because
Fine.
that's what Oregon asked him to do, right? And then his BMI is slightly under 30, which is what your workload, your bell cow backs are normally going to be. I don't see any issue with him being a bell cow back. He's not injury prone. He's super efficient when running the ball, especially in 2023 when they gave him less carries. He averaged over 7 yards a carry. So if you guys can get this guy in the mid-second round of your rookie drafts, he is going to be a smash hit, I think, because I don't see any coaching staff that's going to look at this guy running the ball consistently and say, oh, yeah, he'll be in the rotation maybe. No, I think we mocked him to the Vikings in the 4th round. He's going to take Aaron Jones' job. I'll stand by that. I'll die on that hill. He's going to take Aaron Jones' job. By probably week 4, if he lands in the Vikings, that's my opinion for sure.
Yeah, so like you said, efficiency is probably the best word used to describe him among plenty of other compliments. He has no apparent deficiencies as far as we can tell. Uh, One other thing is he hasn't really housed any long runs at the collegiate level, and so that'll be something that people say, "Oh, he's not fast." I really think, and I think you agree with this, right? It's not that he doesn't have the theoretical ability to house these long runs. He's just gotten so unlucky with shoestring tackles, not having the best angle. I don't know what it is, but I do think we're going to see him house longer runs at the NFL level. And if he does go to the Vikings, funnily enough, I know Aaron Jones is an unrestricted free agent, but if Aaron Jones was to go there, that is a reasonable player comp. But I think that this guy is a better athlete than Aaron Jones is.
For sure, for sure. All right, so this is our list from 10 to 1, man. How do you feel about this?
I think if we end up with some of these guys, I know we have ended up with some of these guys in our startup, and I think we're both pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
Some of the knowledge we had from grading them definitely helped us out, huh?
Yeah. I ended up getting Jordan James, McCord, uh, Will Howard as well. So I got a few of these guys. I know you got Royals, you got Tez. I hated that you got Tez, but you got Tez. Who else did you get out of these guys? You got Kyle Williams too, right?
I got Kyle Williams, and I traded away RJ Harvey because I got a good deal in the startup too.
Yeah, somebody else was really high on RJ Harvey. I mean, it's kind of easy if you watch the film, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
These were our top 10 sleepers for the 2025 class. These are definitely guys that you're going to want to go after in those, mid second round to, mid third round, even late third rounds if they're still there. And if any of these guys are there in the 4th round, you take them, you trade up, do whatever you have to do to get these guys before they're taken from you. But yeah, that's all I have to add for sure.
Yeah. We hope you've appreciated this content. We're going to be doing all kinds of creative videos like this, besides our regular prospect profile videos. And if you like what you've seen and heard, feel free to like and subscribe. Also, feel free to join our Patreon. We do live streams there. We do custom videos for you. We have private Discord servers where we have fantasy football chats and real life chats where we can give you specific team advice based on your specific league settings and all kinds of other perks. So go ahead and look at our Patreon.
For sure. And lastly, I hope everybody has a very good day. See you guys.